And we're going to start out with a team that has, until recently, not really gotten very much general fan attention on shows like this one, national and august platforms like Divine Intervention. So, Jared Dubin, say something nice to me about the Houston Rockets.
I am scarily all in on Amen Thompson. The degree to which I love watching him play, it's it's borderline should be illegal. I love watching that dude so much. Him and his brother, obviously they're extremely similar players. I feel like Amen has even more burst than Asar somehow. And he's everywhere defensively. He's a connecting piece offensively, and he's rebounding like crazy. He's basically playing the 5 on offense for them since Alperen Şengün moved out of the starting lineup. They didn't have Jabari Smith on Monday, so they had Jock Landale out there with them on Monday night. But I love watching that dude play so much. So that's, if I have to choose one thing, it's that one thing.
Well, the good news is we're allowed to talk about more than one, but it's a wonderful place to start. It's in my notes as well. You mentioned Şengün moving out of the starting lineup. He suffered an injury. That's the kind of injury that, for a team that was in as sort of precarious a position as Houston was, young team, they're kind of trying to fight from underneath, get back into the postseason picture. Your main guy goes down. That could be a defensible reason to just fold up, right? And be all right, well, we gave it a shot, but not going to be our year. But we've already made strides this year. There's something to feel good about moving forward. But Amen Thompson being that kind of piece that you can plug in and reimagine in different contexts, and Ime Udoka being the kind of head coach who has had success kind of figuring out, don't tell me what this guy can't do. Let me figure out what I can use him to do. That was the Robert Williams example with the defense in Boston and playing 2 bigs together like that. Amen Thompson suddenly becomes they go small, and they're we're going to be a small ball lineup. Jabari Smith Jr. is going to kick over to the 5. We're going to play Amen at the 4. Jalen Williams there. Oh, sorry, not Jalen Williams. Jalen Green. We'll get to him in a second. Just have a lot of good young Jalens on the brain. It's difficult at this stage in the NBA. The Jalen uprising has come. And we can sort of dramatically reconfigure who we've been on the fly, but still be super athletic, super aggressive, super defensively capable, and just tweak what this guy can do, because turns out when you let Amen Thompson be your ostensible 5 on offense, he's going to shoot 65% at the rim or 70% at the rim and be able to make plays in the short roll, the connecting passes you were talking about. He's a 6'7", 1 through 4 plus defender who also can play 5 on offense. It's a weird skill set, but I've talked I think on this show in the past about him and his brother being kind of the evolutionary versions. If you got free Darko guys today, this is your version of what a Josh Smith would have been, or what a Gerald Wallace would have been, these sorts of players, we're getting to see what those guys look like if a league understood how to use them at 20. And seeing that guy be able to be that sort of versatile piece in a playoff run or a potential postseason run has been really fascinating. The reason, though, and we've got to mention this part, the reason that they are in this position right now is Jalen Green is on an all-time heater. The last, so I think since Şengün went down, let me pull up the numbers here. 30.7 points per game since Şengün went down, 50, 46, 80 shooting. He's made 4 or more threes 9 times in the last 13 games. So he's just bombing away, off the catch, off the pull, whatever, and just stroking it. This is what I think the most optimistic upside of what Jalen Green could look like has been, or was, when they picked him number 2 overall. But I don't know if everybody kind of saw it coming this soon and then in this way.
Yeah, I wrote something about them earlier this season about how hiring Ime Udoka and signing Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and Jock Landale, it gave them sort of a professionalism to the operation that allowed you to actually evaluate all of these young guys on their team. And, it was early on in the year, and Jalen Green was shooting, 40% from the field, 30% from 3. And one of the things that I focused on was how it seemed like every single shot he was taking off the dribble, he was drifting to his left or drifting to his right. He would never just go straight up and down. And that was one of the things that frustrated me so much about him. And I feel like he's had better balance on those type of shots lately, but he's also making the off-balance shots, which is a big change from where he was for the first, what is it, 2.5 years of his career. And if he's going to be able to make those off balance shots, that changes things dramatically. But if he's just on balance more, that does too. And I don't know what it is about these last few weeks. Like, is it just March basketball? Is it something that, clicked into his head from the coaching? Is it like knowing that he has to carry the offense without Şengün? Like, whatever it is, they need to bottle up whatever he's done with his jumper over these last few weeks and with the confidence he has in the jumper, which is something that I think that contributed to the, like, I'm trying to fade away. So like I am like putting the spin and touch on the ball while I'm in the air or something like that. I don't know exactly what it is, but whatever has been going on these last few weeks with that, they need to keep it exactly like that.
Especially because he's been doing that and it hasn't come at the disservice or the detriment of whatever gains he's made on the other side of the court. Like, he's averaging 7 rebounds a game in this stretch too. Like, that's not, that engine room kind of dirty work on the defensive glass is not the kind of guy he has been or that you'd expect him to be. But with the athleticism, with the length, he's taken a step on the defensive end. Our guy Kelly Iko at The Athletic had written a good piece about that earlier this week, like Udoka praising him for better effort, better energy on that end. And that's, I think, to the point that you made about the professionalism, right? About like, if you've got Fred VanVleet there, you've got Dylan Brooks there, Jock Landale to some degree, Jeff Green, like another, just like a veteran, there is a standard established. If you do not put in this requisite level of effort and, nail your job, you're going to be held accountable for it. And you see yourself on camera on the film, getting roasted for like, these are the mistakes that you're making. This is not to the standard that we hold up. And that was the thing with the Rockets sort of throughout the season. The beginning of the season, I wrote about their defense and the steps that they'd taken, but they went through that slide midseason and the offense was kind of in the toilet. And you're like, well, they're going to fall out of contention here. But even as that happened, the defense stuck around. They were still like top 5, top 6, so around there in points allowed per possession. And like that establishes your floor and gives you an opportunity to stick around. And then like you get that, you combine that with one of your guys goes on a heater, Fred VanVleet suddenly starts hitting a bunch of threes too. And like, you can kind of be right back in that thing if you hit a strong pocket in the schedule and the guys above you start to dip. And like, so this is an opportunity where there's an objects in the rearview mirror or closer than they appear component for the Lakers, for the Warriors, but it's not just them falling all over themselves. To some degree it is that, but we're reframing and accentuating the positive today. Houston deserves a ton of credit for keeping themselves in the fight here and then putting themselves in a position where, yeah, maybe it's, the vicissitudes of March basketball, but like you got to win the games and they're doing that and putting themselves in a position where they're over 500, 78 plus games into the season, which is the first time since Harden was there. Like that, there is something to be said for like getting yourself in the conversation.
Yeah, definitely. And like there was frankly a lot of low-hanging fruit available to them to improve this season. Like the last 2 seasons of Rockets basketball were not pretty. Like I could barely watch them last year. And, in the spirit of reframing things, like you said, like they have taken all that low hanging fruit and, picked it and tried to eat it. Like they have done things in a much more, like I know what they're trying to accomplish on both ends of the floor, which is not something that you could say for the last 2 years. And I think with Green specifically on defense, as you mentioned it, like, the tools have always been there for him to be a good defender. He's a ridiculous athlete. He's really long. He has, incredible size for a wing player. Like it's just about teaching him what to do and getting him to execute it. And, this is only Ime's second season as a coach, but I think we've seen like he clearly knows how to get guys to know what to do on that end of the floor. And, maybe that changes over the course of his career, but it seems like the kind of thing, like if you're a good defensive coach, that tends to follow you. And like, I think they've been defending over the talent level of the defenders on the roster for most of the year. Especially, on the interior, Şengün is like a short-armed kind of guy. Like it's not necessarily what you would think of as a rim protector, but if you can get more out of your personnel than what they have available, that's good coaching. And I think that's a good sign that they are more open to being coached and more capable of taking coaching than it seemed like they were over the last 2 years.
Absolutely. The trajectory looks a lot, a lot more optimism, or there's a lot more optimism in what's going on there this point this year than there was, 6 months ago, however long. And that's something to really be excited about.